Hi everyone, my name is John Darnell. I work for the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment. We're one of the youngest departments in the city. Our system was established, our neighborhood council system was established in 1999 by the voters. They actually voted to approve change in the city charter, which is like a city's constitution, to create our civic engagement system. And the point was so they could have a stronger voice at City Hall. If you've ever seen a map of Los Angeles, this is downtown, but it actually doesn't go over that hill. It goes over a hill that goes the other way. In the San Fernando Valley, where there's a little over 1 million people, which is where the Northridge earthquake happened, all the way down to San Pedro. So it's really spread out. If you've ever studied urban sprawl, it's a really good example of here in Los Angeles. So our mission is to promote civic engagement and make government more responsive to local needs by supporting the neighborhood councils throughout Los Angeles. Neighborhood councils are comprised of volunteer elected officials who serve on boards to monitor the delivery of city services to their communities. If the government starts at the federal level, which I'll show you here, and then goes down to the state, county, and the city, neighborhood councils are basically considered the closest form of government to the people. So they're elected officials, they're not paid, but they're also not just volunteers like on a nonprofit, they're actually part of the government. So they actually serve the local needs of the neighborhoods that they serve. Our department helps to connect neighborhood councils and city government by holding workshops and trainings on public engagement, both for neighborhood councils and city staff. For example, we have a program called Civic University, where we bring in experts to teach city staff and neighborhood council board members about how the city works in general. And we hold meetings that talk about mayoral initiatives, for example, like Resilient Los Angeles. We're going to have our third one on about a week and a half on Monday, January 29th. As staff, we are often in the field at neighborhood council meetings to help the board members become more effective between them and the city government. Currently, the city of Los Angeles has 99 neighborhood councils. There's approximately 1,800 board members, 1,800 board members, and hundreds of other non-board members who serve as liaisons or stakeholders who serve on committees on the neighborhood councils. Also, they each receive approximately $42,000 a year, each neighborhood council, and there's 99, so it's a little over $4 million a year that the city actually gives to the system. And they spend that in their communities on various things like events. For example, yesterday, the Northridge East Neighborhood Council, which is the name, there's actually 3 different neighborhood councils that were divided up in the Northridge area where the earthquake happened. They had an event yesterday, and it was co-sponsored by Cal State University Northridge, because of the 25th anniversary of the Northridge earthquake. Neighborhood council members are elected by the stakeholders in their communities they serve. They're elected just like a city council member or the mayor or the city attorney or city controller would be. And they therefore are public officials. Members usually serve 1, 2, or 4-year terms, depending on how the board is set up. So, for example, in Congress, if you're in the House of Representatives, you serve 2 years. If you're in the Senate, you serve 6. So neighborhood councils actually get to choose how long their terms can be as well. Each board is different, though, because the city wanted each neighborhood council to truly represent the communities they serve. Also, one does not have to be a citizen to be on the board. We try to be the most inclusive system as possible in the country. And we're actually considered to be the largest civic engagement system in the nation, and probably the most dynamic because we're so inclusive and we tackle pretty much every issue there is. If you look at the scale of a lot of different states in the country, for example, Colorado has 5 million people. The city of Los Angeles just has over 4 million. I think Vermont has about 700,000 people. If you look at different states, we could be, I guess, considered maybe a state, as big as a state. So we deal with a lot. So an initiative like this really, is far-reaching, even though it's just called the City of LA. I think if we were a state, we'd be about 25th ranked as far as population. So we're ahead of 25 other states as far as population. So we have a lot to deal with. And there are other positions on a neighborhood council, and one does not have to be a board member to be active in those roles. These are what we call liaison positions, and these are focused on at the local level, for example, local issues. For example, one could be an aging liaison, focusing on issues that affect older adults. Obviously, this is the land of Hollywood, so there's a position also called the film liaison. People can focus on filming, maybe issues in the neighborhood where there's actually filming happening, or maybe there's too many cars parked because of a film shoot, versus just policy, advocating for more filming. There's a lot of different liaison positions. For the purposes of today's meeting, though, we're going to focus on our newest position. That's the resilience liaison for neighborhood councils. And so our first civic university we had with the mayor's office was on August 14th of last year. This is actually a picture of our presentation from one of the staff from Rob's office from the emergency management department. Her name is Christina. She did the presentation on the Ready Your LA neighborhood. And in that, we also had broken into groups to talk about important issues. They call it, as Marissa mentioned, they're called shocks and stresses. So they went through and said, what's important in your community? People would write it down. As Sally mentioned, it's not just about disasters, it's also about the new term resilience. So for example, homelessness. How do we be resilient to help homeless folks? How food insecurity. How can we be resilient to make sure those issues are addressed? And then the picture in the middle at the top, there's actually an alliance, citywide alliance, where board members get together to talk about emergency preparedness. And so they meet on the fourth Saturday every month, for example. I attend those meetings, and one person usually from each and every council comes and learns about what they can do to bring back in their community. And every community deals with different issues, so pretty soon we're going to start trying to focus on specific things. Like there's about 6 or 7 areas in the city, 6 or 7 neighborhood councils in the city that could possibly have a tsunami if an earthquake happens. If you're in the San Fernando Valley, there's a big mountain in front of you, you're obviously not going to have a tsunami, but there's a lot of neighborhood councils that are along the coast, because the city of Los Angeles does have a lot of coastal area. So we'll have, for example, we'd like to have a presentation there, bring those folks in so they can prepare better in their communities for those. So because the city is so big, and you have to sort of divide and conquer because it's so big, different areas to make sure everyone's prepared. And then the last picture up on the top right is actually my friend Rod here gave a presentation. We have a program called Civic Youth. The initiative talks about getting us involved with youth and how incorporating them in the resiliency plan. So actually, there's about 30 of our youth ages 14 to 24. They came to the Emergency Operations Center. Rob gave a full hour and a half, 2-hour tour and presentation on what it means. Everyone's ever seen the show 24 when they're in the big room and all the TVs and all that stuff. It actually looks just like that. And the kids, when the TVs rose up and the big screens, CNN's on and all this stuff, the kids' eyes lit up. Thought they were in a movie. But it was really neat because they really got to see, this is what happens. And there's tables like this, except there's pods. One might be, the legal pod, one might be the transportation pod, one might be the fire police pod, law enforcement, FEMA. So if something happens, they'll gather there and do that. And then at the end, EmpowerLA was mentioned. It's a text alert someone can get, and basically we had all the kids sign up for that text alert. And so, as you know, the mayor launched his initiative on March 3rd, 2018. One of the directives was to have the neighborhood councils, each one, 99, create a disaster and resiliency plan. So right now we're working on that, and they're all going to have, as many as we can get, at least this year, we're going to have, ready by the end of this year. Neighborhood councils to create their plans. So pretty soon we're going to come out with a template for them that's like a guidance, a few pages of guidance so they could fill out. What are your shocks, what are your stresses, and how we can deal with them. So they can actually put it in that different framework of resilience. And then let me go to my last slide really quick. And so as far as because I want to try to show you some things that's been done on a PhD level, just really quick because I know my time is up. If you guys are interested, we actually had a person named Brian, and he was really great. He actually worked with our department, interviewed neighborhood council board members, interviewed city staff, and wrote a 300-page dissertation on basically what our system does. And he went to University of California, Irvine, and he published it last year, 2018. So if you'd like a copy of it, just text ELA case study to 555-888. ELA stands for EmpowerLA. That's our brand name. We're called the Department of Neighbor Empowerment, but EmpowerLA is our brand name. You can text that there. You can get the paper. You can actually read about it. And it's actually really interesting. He did a full presentation in front of our staff and pretty much encapsulated it all. So if there's somewhere where you actually want to read an in-depth study of the system, this is probably one of the best case studies that we've actually seen. So thank you for your time.